So this topic was requested of me to speak on, and why do bad things happen to good people? I'm sure you've all heard that phrase many times. And it's kind of the kind of topic that's interesting, but when it hits close to home, then it's a little more intense. When it hits close to home means when something really bad happens to you, or in many cases, when someone who's very dear to you, a really good person, was very dear to you, unexpectedly, out of the blue, something really bad happens to that person, and you go, why? They're such a good person. Or a whole series of bad things happen, and then more bad things happen, and why? So that's the topic. And not very pleasing answer, especially when it's someone very dear to you, if you simply say, well, it's their karma, shrug your shoulders. It's not, doesn't sit well. Supposing there's a car accident and somebody dear to you dies in a car accident, and say it's not so palatable. Or a large number of people get smashed by a cyclone or hurricane or something, and it's their karma. I mean, the tone is a non-compassionate tone. Exaggerates it, but we can't get away from the fact that there is justice in the universe. There is a law that says, for example, if you stick your hand in fire, even if you're a good person or an innocent person, a small child or something, there's a law that fire burns. And similarly, there's a law of nature that says whatever you do comes back. I'm going to show you a few interesting little video clips about karma. So this is the topic: how to view it, how to use it, and how to lose it. The principle, or the karma theory, is cause and effect. And something way remote is a cause. And after some time, this poor fellow is going to find whatever those brown blocks are going to clobber him in the head. Now, in case you like British humor, I'm not so fond of British humor, but here's a British humor depiction of karma. British humor. I mean, they're promoting ecology and treating the earth properly, and if you don't treat the earth properly, it all comes back to you. That's the people who put that little piece together. Now, how does karma play itself out in everyday life? Not just in humans, but we see within life there's enormous diversity. There's enormous diversity within the human society, different cultures, different colors, different languages, different differences, so many differences. Diversity. And then aside from within the human species, so many other species, enormous diversity. You probably know, but in case you didn't, according to Padma Purana, there are a very specific number of species, 8,400,000. And you can, hopefully you can see this on your screen. It gives exact numbers. So many aquatics, plants, trees, and grass. This is going in the ascending order of evolution of species, germs and insects, birds, animals, and humans. You add up the numbers, 8,400,000 species of humans, and so many species of the other forms of life. So lots of diversity. And in human form of life, we find that some have this capacity, karmic capacity, that they're very rich, and they're maybe just born into a wealthy family. Some are poor, either born or just that's their karmic set. And some are very healthy and strong, and some persons are weak and handicapped. So when you see these kinds of differences, it's a natural question that a thoughtful person will ponder. Why do we have these, you can say, varieties or inequities? It seems maybe it's not fair. Some people are rich and some people are impoverished. Some people are very healthy. Some people are handicapped. So why do we find this suffering, including innocent children? Because they didn't do anything, and sometimes very cruel things happen to small children. So why? Same as the original question. And one might wonder, maybe upstairs in the God department, there's some mistake or some partiality. Why do innocent children get killed? They didn't do anything wrong. Or this general question, why do bad things happen to good people? Is God partial? Now, there's an answer besides the partiality of God to why bad things happen to good people. And that points to this law of karma. In my college days, there was a book, best-selling book, written by a Jewish rabbi, Why Bad Things Happen to Good People. And his name wasn't Hare Krishna, his name was Harry Kirshner. He was a rabbi. And, he raises the same question. Since God is all-powerful, and God is all-knowing, and God is all-loving, then why do bad things happen to such good people? And, well, I didn't read the book, but I know some people that read the book. And one of the main points is even God makes mistakes, and he makes mistakes. The chosen people, the Jewish people, are actually good people, and somehow they've historically been on the receiving end of bad things. So how can God be all-loving? Well, he makes some mistakes. That's at least a notion that's in this book. Now let's take a different picture, the Bhagavad Gita picture. What's the determining factor for bad things happening? You can look later in Bhagavad Gita. You'll find 8.3. The statement is made, action pertaining to the development of material bodies of living entities is called karma, or fruitive activities. So what's a fruitive activity? Fruitive activity is when you do something to get something. Now, who doesn't do something to get something? It's standard in the world that we live in, this physical plane. People do something to get something. And when you do something to get something, that's fruitive activity. And that fruitive activity generates karma, and the karma can be good, bad, or mixed, or all varieties. So it develops bodies, and it develops the things that happen within our present body. Here's a very graphic painting or illustration of the principle of karma. When you take the life of an innocent animal, you cause pain or suffering to another living entity that comes back. It may not come back instantly. There is such a thing as instant karma. As I recall, John Lennon wrote a song called Instant Karma. But sometimes it's not instant, it's a law. It comes back. And kindness also comes back. And pain and suffering to others comes back. Or in the biblical saying, reap what you sow. Like seeds. You sow seeds, and you'll reap the fruit of those seeds. So actions that are fruitive, they generate a reaction. You reap what you sow. Or it's sometimes compared to Newton's third law of motion. Everyone knows who Sir Isaac Newton is in his third law of motion. It's action and reaction. We learn it in physics. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And as with laws of physics, also the law of nature. For every action that we do, if you cause pain and suffering for someone else, guaranteed that pain and suffering will come back equally to you. It's just a law of nature. It may be delayed, but somewhere back there, if some misfortune is coming to you, it means there's a cause. The cause is not accidental. Now here's another little video. It's just a cute, people that like to do graphic things, make cute little videos. Here's a little cute video that is a parody on the law of karma. Okay, so that's a cute little cartoon on what you do comes back to you. Now we'll go to our devotional teachings. There are different categories or types of karma. And as you see on the screen, we're looking at 4 different types. Just like there's a tree, some trees have ripened fruit that have fallen to the ground. That's in the category of prarabdha karma. That's what's happening right now. Prarabdha karma is what's happening right now. And that which hasn't happened yet, that's called aprarabdha, or not yet manifested. Prarabdha is manifested. There's another kind of karma category that's just in a seed form. And then kuta has different meanings, but one of them is sinful proclivity, or the tendency, the residual tendency to do fruitive activity, something that's selfish by intention. So this is what our Vedic texts teach us about different types of karma. Now here comes what I think is like the essence of the whole karma picture. It's a timeline, and we see blocks of time here. And sometimes karma fructifies quickly. Those are the smaller circles. And sometimes it doesn't fructify quickly. You take those different colors that are horizontal, it's a lifetime. So something that maybe several lifetimes ago doesn't fructify until this lifetime at this moment. And some aren't there yet. So, nice picture, karmic timeline. So we're not really sure when something bad happens, what was the event that caused that something that bad happened? What was that the reaction to? And as you see, there's many, many, many circles, and it's really complicated. I liken the complexity of karma to the inside of a golf ball. No, maybe you have never seen the inside of a golf ball, but it's out inside that white covering that has little indentations in it, hard plastic or rubbery plastic covering. Just inside that, there's this chain of very thin and very narrow rubber band wound around and wound around and wound around, and thousands and hundreds of thousands of times wound around. And where does it begin? Where does it end? It's you don't know. It's very complicated. Similarly, karma is very complicated. Where does it begin? What's the cause of this reaction? And that reaction has a certain action, and what's that action caused by? And it's very complex. But the purpose of this graphic is to show it's not bound by time. Some karmas are quick, some karmas are delayed, some are in between, and life is filled with reactions to past actions. So now, what to do? This little graphic is showing spans of time, many lifetimes, may pass before karma is fructified. And in this way, based upon karma, we find varieties of forms of life. Here's a detail. Once in the lower forms of life, meaning below the human form of life, those life forms are not accruing further karma, rather they're living out their past karma. But from the human form of life, we are accruing karma. We're accruing karma because we have higher consciousness, and with that higher consciousness, we have options of what we'll eat, for example, whereas lower life forms may not, or what we'll say and do, and so forth. Because we have more options, we have freedom, we have also responsibility. Say it again. With freedom comes responsibility. And the human form of life alone can generate karma, the responsibility for past actions or our present choices. And then one can go up, or one can go back down, or one can become free from karma. You see in the center of that painting is the infinity sign. You can't trace out the beginning or the end unless liberation comes. Here's a little graphic showing some examples. This is taken directly from Bhagavad Gita. But let's do the lower right one first. Supposing somebody has an insatiable appetite to eat anything and everything without discrimination. So the human form of life is not meant for that, but there are other life forms, such as the pig, who'll eat anything at any time. Or in the upper right-hand corner, supposing someone has a liking for flesh of animals, cooked. And over on the right side, if you like blood and the flesh of animals, then there's life forms more suited, and so on, and so on. Karma has its impact on the form of life that you receive, and then even in your present human form of life. Some of you may know, he's now deceased, but Dr. Ian Stevenson from the University of Virginia, he was in the psychiatry department, but they created a special division for him, dealing with people who had remembrances of past lives, past life experiences. And there's many things to say, but his last book, before he left this world, his last book was Where Biology and Reincarnation Intersect. There's, as you see, many, many cases were studied. But just to give some samples, he shows pictures in his book of people who he interviewed who remembered their previous lives. Somebody who was born with half a leg. Somebody who was born with marks on their leg that looked like rope tied around their leg or legs. Someone with a scar that showed a bullet went through their chin and out the upper part of their head. And the persons remember in their previous lives what happened and how that deformity of their body, the biology part, was connected to their past life. And without elaborating, you can read the book. His conclusion is some persons who can remember their previous lives out of that big pie, some have some physical marking on their body and take that slice of the pie. He wrote the book just on that. And he found the persons remembered these things. He checked, there's many things. He checked to see if those marks were there in their body from birth, like the half a leg, or was it amputated later, etc., etc. Was it there from birth? And then they remembered their previous life, their name, their place of residence, how it happened. Like the girl who was born with half a leg remembered that in her previous life she was on a railroad track. A train came by, mangled her body, and half of her leg was cut off by the railroad car. And that showed in the autopsy that how the person died, etc., etc. So without going into the detail, there's the present body that we have is connected to the previous body we had. And the events of the previous body are connected to the present body. Or as you sow, you shall reap. Here's a little illustration. Why do bad things happen to me? Here's a silo-like apparatus. And the way that silos work is you put stuff in the very top, but what's at the very bottom is what comes out before what comes out at the top. And so the storage bin of a silo is something happened in the past that has causing the circumstances of my present life to unfold the way they're unfolding. So that leads to another question. Here's the question. Is everything already predestined? Like, I really don't have any choices because stuff is going to happen. Good stuff is going to happen. Bad stuff is going to happen. Do I really have a choice? Or is everything predestined? That's a good question. Here is an example that responds to that question. On the left, our picture of one brother who became a qualified businessman, and the other brother, by destiny, he became a criminal, a thief. Now, they were the same brothers from the same parents, born around the same time, but they made choices. So we can choose to be a criminal. You can't say, well, it's just my destiny to be a criminal, or it's just my destiny to be a successful businessman. Now, we make choices as we move along in life. Circumstances may be there that can change, and we're making choices. In other words, in all circumstances, at all moments of time, free will is always there. So it's not that everything in our life is predestined. Now, there's such a thing, two different types of karma, good karma, and there's bad karma. Bad karma burns. Now, if you have some bad karma coming your way, can you cancel it out just by doing good stuff? Doesn't work that way. And here's another question. Is good karma really good? What does that mean? Good karma, of course it's good because it's good karma. But the problem with good karma, the bad thing about good karma, is that's also binding on the performer. Someone may decide from today onwards, I'm just going to do only good karma. So what does that mean? In practical terms, we're still bound by that karma. Here's an illustration meant to show. You go from a small cage to a big cage, but you're still in a cage. A bigger cage, but you're still in a cage. And there's not real freedom. Karma that's good is also bondage. One, that means in your next life, you will have to take a next life. You have to achieve another body and go through all of this all over again. And you may not see it coming. That's what this illustration is, but right behind you. Okay, pull over, buddy. Let me see your license and registration. It's an inexorable, inevitable force, even good karma. So now we're going to have one more little video. It's entertaining. No, we're not. Can we just balance it all out? That's another question. Got some bad karma, good karma. Do a bunch of good karma, and it reduces the proportion of the bad karma. Well, not exactly. Good karma and bad karma don't exactly cancel each other out. They just happen. Here's a little story. I think you'll like the story. It's called The Chinese Farmer Story. And the story goes like this. Once upon a time, there was a Chinese farmer. And the Chinese farmer had a horse. So the local villagers came to the Chinese farmer and they said, "Oh, you're so fortunate. You got a horse. And because you have a horse, you can plow your field much more easily than we can. We don't have a horse." And the Chinese farmer said, "Good fortune, ill fortune, who can say?" After some time, the horse ran away. So the villagers came and said, "Oh, what misfortune, your horse ran away. Now you have to plow your fields like us." And the Chinese farmer said, "Good fortune, ill fortune, who can say?" He was a Taoist. Go with the flow. After some time, the horse came back. And when the horse came back, he came back with several other wild horses. So now the farmer has multiple horses. So the villagers came and said, "Oh, what good fortune. Now you have many horses. It'll be much easier for you to plow your fields than the rest of us." And the Chinese farmer said, same thing. Good fortune, ill fortune, who can say? After some time, his son was trying to train one of the horses to plow the field. He fell off the horse and he broke his leg. And so the villagers came to the farmer and said, "Oh, what misfortune, your son fell off the horse and broke his leg." And the Chinese farmer said, guess what he said? Good fortune, ill fortune, who can say? And then some time passed and the Chinese government went to war with some other people. And there was a conscription law. All able-bodied men between this age and that age have to join the army. And so the government people came to the town and all the young men were taken except for the farmer's son because he had a broken leg. So the villagers came and said, "Oh, what good fortune. Your son didn't have to go off to war because he had a broken leg." And the Chinese farmer said, "Good fortune, ill fortune, who can say?" And that's the end of the story. So misfortune has a lot to do with how you read it. Your attitude towards life and the events of life can be seen as good fortune or ill fortune, but a lot depends on your point, your vantage point, your perspective. So now let us go to the next message. How do we take a look at good karma or bad karma? One way to say, what Bhagavad Gita way of saying is both are bad. And why are they both bad? Because they're both binding. Binding means you have to take another body and get another go at it for good fortune, ill fortune, and so forth. The cycle of birth and death, samsara in Sanskrit. Tough. So you do good or you do bad, and there's bondage. So what to do? Bhagavad Gita teaches us, same as the first slide that we saw, how to become free from karma. There's action that has no reaction. Wait a minute. What action doesn't have reaction? And the answer is, there's a term in Sanskrit, akarma, means no karma, and here are some of the essential elements. Listen carefully if you want to become free from karma. Everything belongs to God. We act according to God's indications given in Scripture. We act on His on His behalf. And that in that way, God takes personal responsibility for our actions because we're doing it on His behalf. And then we'll have the true objective of life. But you need to know what that true objective of life is. Have good teachings and teachers and good heart that you can move in that direction. And when you have that akarma situation, then there's no good or bad. other than pursuing the real objective of life. Sounds attractive, except people don't want to surrender to God. The benefits, you have no reactions, and the seeds of all previous reactions are terminated. You're not generating any new, and the old reactions are terminated. When we look at these two personalities, I'm sure you know from Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna was not interested simply in becoming victorious because then he could enjoy the kingdom. But when it came to Krishna wanted him to do, then he was prepared to do. Here's the text from Bhagavad Gita. I'm sure you're familiar with this. The essence, the concluding teaching of the entire Bhagavad Gita. Sarvadharmam parityaja, mam ekam sharanam braja, aham tvam sarvapapebhyo, moksha yashami ma suchaha. A celebrated verse. And if you don't know it, in course of time, you'll come to know it. It's a very, very important essence verse of the whole Bhagavad Gita. Other principles of Dharma are subjugated to this one principle. What's the one principle? Just surrender to me. Mame kam sharanam. Surrender to Krishna alone. And you're freed from bondage of your past karmas just by that one act. Is it possible to, once you start on the path of akarma, to slip and lose that? Well, any Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, Krishna says, even if you make a little progress, svalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Svalpa means very little. Even a little bit of advancement on this path is permanent, and it'll protect you. One way of saying what yoga is, it's performing akarma throughout your life. That's what yoga is. And that which links one with the source of everything, or links one with God. Sounds very appealing. How does the whole network of bondage to karma begin? But karma is like a prison, and how'd you get in here anyways? So we had that little discussion this morning in our morning class. Here's an image that shows over in the lower right-hand corner, we see the cloud of the material energy in Mahavishnu reclining there. There you see the living entity turning his back on Krishna in the spiritual world. When we turn, very simple, when you face the sun, what do you see? You see light. And you turn your back to the sun, what do you see? You see shadow. And along the side of the shadow is light, but you don't see light. You just see the reflection of that light alongside with your shadow. Same. When we turn our attention away from Krishna, we become implicated in this shadow-like material existence, where fruit of activities is the name of the game. Karma is the law. Here's what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita chapter 7. Again, we discussed that this morning. All living entities are born into delusion, bewildered by the dualities arising from desire and hate. Icha is desire. Samutena is hate. Icha, dvesha, another phrase is used, desire and hate. So there's a duality, desire and hate. It's resting on material desire. So let's take a look at same idea in a graphic form. Up at the top, we have living entity in a natural position of servant of Krishna, but unfortunately turning one's back on Krishna. That's where the entanglement in karma begins. And once engaged in the entanglement of karma, Bhagavad Gita teaches us, the intelligence gets diluted. We become engrossed in the illusory energy. The dualities of desire and hate rule our lives. There may be some good fortune. You may come in contact with a devotee, if that's your good fortune, fantastic. But there's a desire, when one gets frustrated with what's in the lower left-hand corner, one may want, I want out of here, I want liberation, I want to become one with the Supreme. But the real solution is to be restored in that picture at the top. That's the process of linking with the Supreme, yoga. That's the akarma position. It's a difficult struggle. Here's a verse from Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, those three modes of nature, you look at the image at the top, there's three ladies, one dressed in yellow, another dressed in red, another dressed in blue. They are representing the three modes of material nature. Goodness is the yellow, passion is the red, and ignorance is the blue. And living entities down below, they're conditioned by the three modes of material nature, and it's very difficult to overcome. Now, what to do? How to overcome the modes of nature, how to overcome the tendency for karma. It's not sufficient to have a mode of goodness set of handcuffs. It's my nephew spoke about my older brother in this way. He said he's bound by golden shackles, interested in wealth, and bound by the shackles, and with, a good person, but bound in bondage. You see in the handcuffs, there's dollar signs in silver. Mode of goodness. When you're in the mode of goodness, there's prosperity. And the mode of passion, it's just a chain, and the bottom mode of ignorance is a ball and chain. That's more severe. So is mode of goodness make one free from bondage? No. Even if one thinks, I have freedom from bondage, is it true? No. So what's freedom from bondage? Again, it's the akarma position or the yoga position. Karma affects everyone. On the left, that's the living entity. And living entities may go into another human form. Living entities may go into a lower species, mode of ignorance. They may go into a heavenly position, higher forms of life. But even going into the higher form of life, according to Bhagavad Gita, one goes down after living that heavenly pleasure for some period of time, or from the lower species by evolution, one again comes to this very special place, the human form of life, where we can become karma-free or become more bound. The goal is to go to the spiritual side by the path of yoga. That's the message of Bhagavad Gita. That's the message of this discussion. To become free from karma altogether. Because the living entity is, by nature, eternal, full of bliss and knowledge. It's the mission or the purpose of this human form of life. Here's a nice verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. The rare human form of life, which, although temporary, affords one the opportunity to attain the highest perfection. So, dear listeners, please take advantage. Go for the release from the bondage of karma. Vikarma means breaking the laws of nature. Karma means doing things in harmony or pious activity. And akarma means no bondage, God-centered activity. And when you perform this akarma lifestyle, then you're free from bondage altogether. It's the right choice out of the unlimited numbers of free will choices that we have. So, conclusion. To see the path for akarma or akarmic life through yoga, we need wisdom literature like Bhagavad Gita to help adjust our vision so we can see things as they actually are and how to become karma-free, to see the world around us in the proper perspective, and make our free will choices wisely. That's the bhakti path. It's also called Buddhi Yoga. You'll find that in chapter 2, second half of chapter 2, Bhagavad Gita. So there's a little summary on the topic, why do bad things happen to good people? And I think I'll just pause and see if any of you who are attending the class want to discuss any points. This is a Zoom call, so I believe you can just unmute yourself and speak. Oh, is it? Okay. We're going to read some, you can send something to the chat box, and if you do, we'll read. And if you want to unmute yourself, you can do that too.
Hare Krishna Maharaja, Tanda Pranam. You spoke about akarma. I apologize for any offense I may cause. As I understand, we need to accumulate enough good karma to cleanse ourselves, to be elevated to the next level, where we can come closer to God, so we can become pure and achieve piety. If we receive no reaction, would we not be continually be bound in this psychic life?
Two things. It's not correct that to be eligible for akarma or bhakti yoga, you have to have lots and lots of pious activities. It's not a fact. Because the nature of bhakti is such that it can burn in an instant all bad karma in a flash. Let's say somebody's misfortunate, then the misfortune is a display of their bad karma. Can a misfortunate person not take to devotional service? And only those who are pious and have good stock of pious activities and wealth and good looks and good education and good this and that, only those persons are eligible for bhakti? Not true. Bhakti is not dependent upon good or bad. So it's not a correct understanding. Now, second part, going forward in time, supposing I'm person somewhere in the middle between good fortune and ill fortune, and I've got a mix of both, like most of us. And I begin bhakti path by association with devotees. What's prescribed for me is, yes, I should conduct my life in keeping or in harmony with the mode of goodness. I should not lie, should not steal, stay clean, leave it, the foods that I eat should not be products of violence, and so forth and so on. I live my life by principles of goodness, but the principle of goodness is meant to be dedicated to Krishna. Life choices should be in relation with Krishna. So it's not then, that means going forward in time, once I begin bhakti, I'm not accruing new karma. I'm doing devotional service, provided that activity is being dedicated to Krishna. Let's just take the simple idea of being a vegetarian. That's mode of goodness. So I become a vegetarian. But it's not just being vegetarian when you become a devotee. It's you take those vegetarian foods and you offer them to Krishna. So that's beyond living a life of goodness. It's in the realm of transcendence from the get-go. And that connection with Krishna through the medium of life and devotion to Krishna, that gives impetus to continue in a sustained manner, continuing to live one's life in the quality of goodness. Now, if there's something I missed in your question, you can pose the question again in the chat box.
Yeah, one more question, Raj. Can I do bhakti or pray to Krishna, which can bring good karma for my son and daughter?
Yes. You're responsible for your actions. And you make right choices, and you're in the direction of bhakti. You're headed in the right direction. Krishna will give you his shelter and protection.
The second question the same person asked, can my bhakti change their karma?
Can your bhakti change their karma? That's the question?
Yes.
It'll certainly impact, but it doesn't totally change. Their bad karma or their misfortune will be mitigated or diminished by your life of devotion, just by that family relation with you.
There is a follow-up question from the previous person. You shared your thoughts about destiny and how some things are not predestined and some are. How do we differentiate between what is destiny and what is not predestined for us?
Well, when something comes, it's simple. You get up in the morning and you have a plan of how you're going to carry out your activities during that day. And then suddenly something unexpected happens. And different circumstances than what you anticipated. Now, that's destiny, or you can say predetermined. If it's, if the weather forecast says it's going to rain, and sure enough it rains, or if your astrological chart says something, something, and sure enough it's something, something, that's karmic destiny. But how you respond to that is your free will choice. You can carry an umbrella or not when it's going to rain or it's raining. And if you're carrying the umbrella for Krishna or not carrying the umbrella for Krishna, that is to say, if you're making your choices due to circumstances that are coming your way for Krishna, for the pleasure of Krishna, it's not karma anymore. although it may be raining. It's not karma anymore. You're in the realm of devotional service. I hope that answers your question. Speak a little louder. It's hard to hear you, please. A little better. Let me try to catch it. Say back, because your voice is really weak, but I'll say back what I caught, and I probably missed it. When you're engaged in akarma, which means devotional service, supposing you do, as a devotee, something that's not so devotional, like, for example, speaking badly about somebody behind their back. That's not something that's the devotees like to do. So, are you held responsible for that? Does that break the karma position? That's your question? Okay. It depends. I mean, provided, here's some of the variables that it depends on. You know the verse in Bhagavad Gita 9:30. Even if apichet suduracharo, sudurachar, even if someone does something really bad, I mean, not like just talking behind somebody's back, but something really bad. According to what Krishna says in that verse, the variable is, if such a person is engaged in undivided devotional service in principle, bhajate mam ananyabhak, undivided devotion. They're always engaged in undivided devotion, and something really out of character happens. It's not normal, it's abnormal. Then Krishna says that person is a sadhu. I consider that person a sadhu, and so should you. Now, that's something really bad, and it's only occasional, and one is prone to an undivided devotional service. Let's take a more standard example, and that is, most of us are not in undivided devotional service. We're in the position of mixed devotional service. Mixed means, like this example, there's a tendency to find fault in others or speak badly about others behind their back. At least on occasion, sometimes somebody may do that, or persons may have a tendency to do that. Does that mean when they do that, they're karmically bound? Or does that mean they're not karmically bound because they're a devotee? Well, it depends on the consistency. When someone does like that, it's not a sin, but it can be an offense. And there are two different things. Aparad is the Sanskrit word for offense. It's not exactly a sin, it's an offense. And there is responsibility for offenses that we make. So it's not karmic, because sin results in karma. But it's another kind of covering of the soul that's the result of offense. And it's more difficult to remove those things. So you're still engaged in devotional service, but the full effect of the full purifying effect of that devotional service is blocked to some degree based upon some offenses. You still may be engaged in devotional service, but cloudying the sky. I'm looking in the sky where I'm sitting here, and it's a blue sky. No light, hazy cloud, but mostly blue sky. So supposing it's not, I'm looking out the window and it's like a storm cloud. The sky is still the sky. And it can be a hazy cloud, a dark rain cloud, or cloudless. It's still the sky. My point is, when you're engaged in devotional service, it's still devotional service. And devotional service means that you have some interest, some intention of trying to please Krishna, trying to make the Krishna connection strong. And you make a mess up, or you have a tendency of criticizing others or becoming angry or something. That's unbecoming. You're still engaged in devotional service, but it may be becoming more cloudy than more clear. But it's still devotional service. If you don't do anything to do a course correction, like nothing to do a course correction from that thing that's unclean, then it becomes offense. And that's detrimental. I hope that answers your question. Go right ahead. We have some questions online over here. Would you want to hear those online questions? We're going to go with the online questions. Go ahead.
Okay. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Please accept my humble obeisance. Maharaj, you said that doing akarma will clear all past reactions in your lifetime. But what about the pain it caused to the other living entities and to Krishna as we are kids? So how can Lord Krishna take away all the reactions just by doing akarma? Because what about the pain you cause to the living entities or devotees? This is my question, Maharaj. Thank you.
If you're causing pain for other living entities, and it's with a selfish interest, then there is karma. Let's go to Arjuna, Prabhupada's classic. Killing is bad. Krishna wanted killing. Arjuna killed. Arjuna was not held responsible. Were those persons killed feeling pain? Were their family members feeling anguish? Was Arjuna not the cause of that? But he was acting under Krishna's jurisdiction, directly, and so there's no karma. So the operative principle here is, unavoidably, as we move through life, other living entities will have some inconvenience just by our existence. It's going to happen. It's unavoidable. So the real consideration is the consciousness that you're in when you're moving through life, making decisions, doing things, speaking things. What's the consciousness behind? That's the operative principle to look at. And if you're not in Krishna consciousness and you cause suffering for others, then you're responsible karmically.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisance. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Can you skip the preamble each time you read?
Okay.
Just read the question, thanks.
We see apparent hardships even in the life of pure devotees like the Pandavas. Is that due to their karmic reactions or for some other reason?
Some other reason. Krishna's arrangement for loving exchange with them and to teach us lessons how to conduct our lives when we have misfortune. That's it.
The next question is, can our thoughts lead to good karma and bad karma?
No, and in this present age, fortunately for us, we're not karmically responsible for bad thoughts or karmically benefiting from good thoughts. However, thoughts commonly lead to action, and we're responsible for that.
The next question is, as per Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, verse 28, Yesam Antakadam Papam, the only way to engage with full determination into devotion is after full eradication of sinful propensity. Is that the only way, or could pure devotion can also be achieved through mercy?
Well, yes, pure devotion can be achieved through mercy. It is not dependent. Mercy isn't dependent on some cause.
The next question is, if I am suffering, does that mean my bad karma is getting subtracted? And similarly, if I am happy, does that mean my good karma is subtracted?
If you're not a devotee, the answer is yes.
The next question is, if cause and effect is within the same person, how to consider COVID suffering? Also, like something like a plane accident where hundreds die at the same time. Is there something like group cause?
Yes. That's a short answer. There is such a thing of group karma besides individual karma, collective karma, it's called.
No more questions.
Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanandi.
Jai.